The second to last day of the legislative session started with a rally, a protest. Hundreds of people flooded the area between the annex and the Capitol. All of them opposed to Senate Bill 150. Then that issue quickly became one of the first issues debated on the Senate and then the House floor. Hundreds of people flooded the area in front of the Capitol Annex Wednesday morning, knowing a veto override of Senate Bill 150 was coming. They believe that it is the government overruling parental rights, and it denies medical care for transgender kids.
Show the rest of Kentucky that we aren't afraid of being who we are, that there's nothing wrong with being who we are, and that it's something to be celebrated.
Moments later, another group in support of the bill gathered in the rotunda, saying the bill protects student privacy in restrooms. It stops gender transition procedures that can have life-changing permanent effects.
When he vetoed it, he vetoed the right of parents to have vital information about their own children. He vetoed the conscience right of teachers and administrators.
The Senate had 9 bills to override, and they took this one up second.
This bill is about ensuring that parents know about sexual and mental health services at their children's schools and are informed when their minor child utilizes those services.
Not a single reputable society, National Medical Society in this country supports what we are doing today.
Within minutes, debate was underway in the House, where some protesters were let out by state police after loudly chanting from the gallery. In the Senate, the veto override was 29-8, and then it moved over to the House, where the final tally was 76-23. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, WKYT.
Now, the ACLU says it is planning to file a lawsuit against the bill. In a statement coming this afternoon, the Fairness Campaign said, quote, transgender children and their families in Kentucky are scared, rightfully so. We will do all we can to ensure they can continue to access the life-saving medical care they deserve, end quote. The Family Foundation called the veto override a win for children and their parents. In a statement today, the foundation's executive director said, quote, SB 150 will protect the lives of Kentucky children by setting policy in alignment with the truth that every child is created as a male or female and deserves to be loved, treated with dignity, and accepted for who they really are, end quote.